About a heavy fever presence in Team USA because Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Stephanie White, all involved in the training camp. Now there's a heavy fever presence in Project B. Project B, the new basketball league, generated a lot of headlines, notably because of money. But in the last couple of days, Kelsey Mitchell has signed on, and now Sophie Cunningham has signed on. And of course, Kelsey Mitchell, her ability and her increased notoriety in the last couple of years make that a pretty big deal. And Sophie Cunningham, her star power, for lack.
She said it, and the entire room froze. Her words were a direct hit at the idea that an athlete must stay loyal to one league forever. Sophie Cunningham didn't hesitate. She basically questioned why any player would ever walk away from millions. This wasn't just about a new league entering the picture. This moment marked a major shift. It sparked a conversation that rippled across the entire WNBA, even leaving players like Kelsey Mitchell trying to make sense of what it meant. That bold stance put money front and center. And honestly, women's basketball was never the same after that.
Deals. Where do you stand on Project B? Is that a league you'd want to play for? She says, I don't know too much about it, You see stuff on social media, but I also know how social media goes. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But, if people are going to be paying you multi-million dollar deals, why would you not? So a little foreshadowing there. Why would you not? Well, the question as to why would you not is the perceived links to Saudi Arabia with Project B, which has become a point of contention because it originally, it's funny because it was originally put out there, the Saudi-backed league, and then the pushback came heavy from Project B. Obviously, they didn't want their brand.
So where does all of this really come from? It starts with a problem that's been simmering in the WNBA for years. The growing belief that the league simply can't pay its biggest stars what they're actually worth. Players have been vocal about the low salaries for a long time. It's the reason so many of them spend their off-seasons overseas, because that's the only way to earn the kind of money their talent deserves. That economic reality created the perfect opening for outside leagues to step in. They could offer life-changing contracts, and that's exactly what cleared the runway for Project B to make its explosive
to Saudi Arabia with Project B, which has become a point of contention because it originally, it's funny because it was originally put out there, Saudi-backed league, and then the pushback came heavy from Project B. Obviously, they didn't want their brand sullied by that connection. I wasn't over here moralizing. I know people like to play the hypocrisy game, activist league, and now signing up with Saudi Arabia, and that could have opened up a whole can of worms. But it has been interesting to see how quickly all that has been attempted to be squashed by Project B, who say they don't have any.
And then Project B just detonated onto the scene. Overnight, it was dominating headlines, not because it existed, but because of the jaw-dropping money it was reportedly throwing around. This wasn't just another off-season option. This league was positioning itself as a full-on disruptor. They were offering multi-million-dollar contracts, figures that made WNBA salaries look microscopic and even surpassed what many stars were getting overseas. Naturally, the moment those numbers leaked, the world's top players paid attention.
Saudi-backed funding, though they are partnered with a company called Sela, which is owned by the Public Investment Fund in Saudi Arabia. We'll get to that in a second, what they said. But the pattern that I referenced is, it seems to me, a lot of the players signing up for Project B are players who have been around a while and now have a chance to get paid. I mean, we've already seen Sophie Cunningham discuss wanting, a longer contract, that she could buy a house and all these other things. Well, that makes sense and is in line with signing with Project B.
So it didn't take long before some major names started jumping on board, and Kelsey Mitchell was one of the very first stars to say yes. Think about it. Her profile has been skyrocketing, and her talent is absolutely undeniable. For a brand new league, landing her was a massive win. Kelsey's decision was a message to everyone watching. Project B wasn't playing around. They were serious about signing elite talent, and her move instantly made the whole operation look far more real and far more legitimate in the eyes of fans and players alike.
New and first position, and it was Saudi-backed and all that stuff. The whole tone of it was, is this a threat to the WNBA? Especially in the midst of the back and forth CBA negotiations. And then another question emerges, is it a threat to Unrivaled? Because it happens in the offseason. And it seems to me that Unrivaled is still getting a lot of the NIL kind of players. The next wave of players, the young players, who maybe aren't as experienced going overseas or haven't lived that WNBA life yet. To me, that seems to be holding true with Unrivaled so far.
And then came Sophie Cunningham, adding even more star power to the movement. Sophie's got that magnetic personality, and her on-court edge makes her impossible to overlook. Landing her was another huge victory for Project B. The moment she signed, the league was right back in the headlines. And by then, the pattern was obvious. They were targeting established players who wanted more. Players looking for something bigger than what the traditional leagues had ever been able to offer.
Lines up, especially with the money that they're paying. You know, that's a big deal. It's a big difference. Where does that money come from? That gets back to the question I was talking about before, and which keeps getting brought up. Sarah Spain had Alana Beard on, who is the chief basketball officer for Project B.
Company owned by the Saudi-owned public investment fund, PIF. Lots of talk about Saudi involvement and initial reporting about...
Here's the thing. Sophie's move wasn't exactly surprising. Anyone paying attention remembered what she told Front Office Sports a while back. They asked her about Project B's multi-million-dollar offers, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. She said, if people are going to pay you millions and millions of dollars, why wouldn't you take it? Looking back now, it's almost like she spelled out her decision before it ever happened. That comment feels less like an opinion and more like a preview of exactly what she planned to do.
Media, but again, Burnett told Front Office Sports that Project B wants a global diversified cap table, but quote, that doesn't include any dollars from Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
So what's
that one simple question, why would you not, quickly became the center of a massive storm. The biggest reason players might actually say no had nothing to do with basketball or money. It had everything to do with Project B's rumored ties to Saudi Arabia. As soon as reports surfaced calling it a Saudi-backed league, a wave of ethical concerns hit immediately. Fans questioned it. Players hesitated. Overnight, what seemed like a straightforward choice about chasing a bigger paycheck turned into something far more complicated.
Incorrectly reported or not fully fleshed out in reporting so far?
Yeah, I love that you asked that question, because I think people are going to focus on what they focus on, because it's very hard for people to process something as ambitious as what we're building, and the fact that we have to sort of engage or partner with certain entities to get it done. At the beginning of this call, I named Jeff Prentice, I named Grady Burnett. I don't think you need anyone else to drive sort of access to capital other than these two individuals, right? And so to Grady's point, we are a global basketball league, and it is our job.
If Caitlin Clark were to sign up to Project B, that would be a big story. As of right now, they're getting some big names. They're getting some good players, but it remains to be seen where Project B winds up. And as of right now, they're still just another offseason league that pays a lot more and now has some Indiana Fever flavor.
Project B immediately faced massive pushback because of its rumored ties to Saudi Arabia. Early on, the Saudi-backed label was everywhere, but the league acted fast to quash it. They clearly didn't want their brand associated with that narrative. A big PR effort followed, aimed at shifting the conversation away from funding sources and back to basketball. Officially, Project B has always denied receiving money directly from Saudi Arabia, insisting their investors are global and diverse, with no Saudi money involved, yet the reality is more complicated. Project B has a major partnership with a company called Sila, which is owned by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, PIF. That direct connection, no matter how the league spins it, keeps questions about their funding alive. Grady Burnett, the league's chief basketball officer, explained that Sila is simply a service provider handling logistics and event production, not an investor. Project B insists this distinction matters. They say their money comes from other sources, and Sila is just a vendor. Looking at their signings reveals a clear strategy. The league targets experienced players, those with established careers who are likely seeking one last big payday. Sophie Cunningham is the perfect example. She's been open about her financial goals, wanting long-term security and big contracts to plan for her future. Project B's multi-million-dollar offer aligns perfectly with her ambitions. Kelsey Mitchell fits the mold, too. She's played overseas for years, recently in China, even sustaining injuries along the way. For her, Project B isn't a radical leap. It's a chance to maximize earnings on a larger stage. So, is Project B a real threat to the WNBA or leagues like Unrivaled? Not really, at least for now. It operates during the WNBA offseason, and its contracts don't appear to prevent players from joining leagues like Unrivaled, which focuses on younger, nil-driven athletes. In many ways, Project B functions like an international league offering players a high-paying opportunity. It's not a new story. Remember Diana Taurasi skipping a WNBA season for a more lucrative overseas contract? She set a precedent. Players will follow the money. and the money is massive. These multi-million-dollar offers dwarf what most players have ever earned, and that appeal can outweigh many other considerations. Even with Project B's denials, the Saudi connection, through Tsila and the PIF, remains a hot topic. Ultimately, the moves by Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham illustrate the complex intersection of money, vision, new leagues, and global politics. Their choices are reshaping the game, forcing players to weigh life-changing opportunities against controversy. What happens next promises to be one of the most compelling stories in women's basketball. If you want, I can also rewrite the entire series of paragraphs you've been sending into a single, seamless, highly readable story that flows like a magazine feature, super punchy, dramatic, and viral ready. It would read way smoother for an article or